evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will now return to a regular session. Our first order of business is honors, awards, and recognitions. And I'll call Dr. Lois Graham to assist the honors, awards, and recognitions.
Good evening. It is our pleasure to share honors and awards and recognitions with you tonight. Our first recognitions will go to Seniors of the Month, and I would ask that Jennifer Weaver, our Director of Secondary Education, come forward to introduce those awards.
Good evening. I'm pleased to bring you our final Senior of the Month. They are certainly, although last, not least, they're a wonderful group of students. You're going to be very impressed. So we'll start with Auburn High School. Mr. Pauly's here to introduce his Senior of the Month.
Thank you, Ms. Weaver, Dr. Graham, Mr. Ivers, and Ms. Blackburn. It is with great pride that I introduce to you Auburn High School's June Senior of the Month, Sadie Morell. Sadie is accompanied by her parents, Michelle and Daryl Wren, this evening, if they would come forward at this time to be recognized. Tell you a little bit about Sadie. Sadie's teachers consistently describe her as a pure delight and a joy to have in class. Not only is Sadie an outstanding student, she is also a kind and caring classmate. She greets each day's task with a positive outlook, always has a smile on her face, and works hard to be successful. She is truly an outstanding citizen who spreads goodwill wherever she goes and makes those around her better. Sadie is also a very enthusiastic student who is always eager to learn, as well as interested and engaged in whatever topic is being discussed in class. She is always inquisitive and extremely thoughtful in her contributions to class discussions, which adds to the quality of learning for the entire class. In addition to her enthusiasm, Sadie has an outstanding work ethic and is highly motivated, always completing her work with care and consistent quality while always striving to improve. I am proud to have Sadie Morell represent Auburn High School as our June Senior of the Month.
Good evening. It is with pleasure that I introduce you to Blacksburg High School Senior of the Month, Rachel Soper. Rachel is accompanied this evening by her mom, Anita Lemon. Would you all please come forward and be recognized? The following comes from Jim Irby, BHS Drafting and Engineering Teacher and Department Chair for Career and Technical Ed at Blacksburg High School. Rachel is our pick and is outstanding at that. She is a fourth-year drafting student who has gone from designing small puzzles to designing houses. She is the second-place State Skills USA winner in architectural drafting. She has also entered a contest through the National Association of Women in Construction, in which she has designed a house per specifications, and she accomplished all of this by hand drafting. She is a great person who never complains about what she has to do. It is with great pride that we introduce you to Blacksburg High School Senior of the Month, Miss Rachel Soper.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Graham, Ms. Blackburn. It is with great pride that I introduce to you Christiansburg High School's May Senior of the Month, Robert Lewis Ritter. He is accompanied this evening by his mom, Kara Ritter, and his grandma, Diane Wine. Will you please come forward at this time to be recognized? Robbie is recognized as our Senior of the Month for the sheer determination and work ethic that he displayed in order to graduate with the CHS class of 2014. Like many students, Robbie experienced a difficult transition from middle to high school and quickly fell behind his class. He started the 2012-2013 school year as a 10th grade student, and it was early in this year that Robbie came to us and stated that he'd really like to get a plan together to get back on track and graduate in 2014. He then utilized every opportunity provided for credit recovery, passing SOLs, and making up time, as well as passing all of the newly scheduled courses needed to graduate. Through hard work and lots of extra hours, Robbie was able to complete 3 years' worth of coursework in 2, and as a result, will be walking across the stage with his peers on June 15th. There are many members of the CHS class of 2014 who give us reason to be proud, and Robbie Ritter can certainly be counted among their numbers. We wish him a sincere congratulations and much luck as he moves into the next phase of his life.
Ms. Blackburn, Mr. Ivers, members of the board, it's with great privilege and pride that I introduce to you Eastern Montgomery High School's June Senior of the Month, Ms. Jamie Luz. She's accompanied tonight by her mother, Shannon Luz. If they would join me, please. EMH SRO Deputy Jennifer Underwood had this to say about Jamie. Jamie has been a very active student throughout her high school career. She has worked to maintain good academic standing while at the same time being very involved in school athletic teams, clubs, and organizations. Jamie is very community-oriented. She has volunteered at SMS with the Girl Talk program, where female middle school students have the opportunity to talk to female high school students about current teenage issues. Jamie has also been a big part of the YOVASO program at EMHS over the past 4 years and served as a committee chairman this past school year. Jamie is a very caring person and is always there to help someone in need. This positive personal attribute will help her in her future as she pursues a degree in criminal justice. Congratulations, Jamie.
Round 2, I apologize for playing catch up here. We're also very proud to present, this will be our June Senior of the Month, Felicia Jang. Felicia is accompanied this evening by her mom, dad, and I believe her sister was too shy to come in. Would you all please come forward and be recognized? This quote comes from Catherine Line, the department chair for English at Blacksburg High School. As a student, Felicia is intelligent, dedicated, intellectually curious, and a joy to have in any classroom. Her energy level is infectious, and her ever-present smile makes all those around her happier as well. During this school year, Felicia has been serving as a National Honor Society vice president. This year's NHS officers decided to challenge themselves, electing for the membership to take on a minimum of 1 fundraiser per month, donating all proceeds to charity. More than once, the officers arranged 2 fundraising events per month. Amazingly, when most graduating seniors are looking forward to what comes next, Felicia and the other officers scheduled 3 May projects for the society. Felicia has been instrumental in these endeavors. Her commitment to excellence and to community is evident in everything she does. Felicia will be entering Princeton this fall, and they are lucky to have her there. We are quite honored to introduce Felicia Jang, Blacksburg High School's June Senior of the Month.
It's my pleasure this evening to recognize a member of our leadership team for her outstanding service to Montgomery County Public Schools and celebrate the occasion of her retirement. I know she has lots of exciting things on the agenda. I'd like to ask Christina Gilly if she would please come and join me at the podium. I get to talk about you a little bit more, Chris, okay? This young lady joined Montgomery County Public Schools in 1974, and she has served us in an outstanding way for 39 years, and that is as a full-time employee. And for the last year, she served us as a part-time employee, but in a full-time way. She has served as Director of Special Education on 2 occasions. First, from 1989 until 1993, she was Special Education Director. She left that position, went back to one of her loves, which is the classroom, and she came back in April of 2000 and has served us as Director of Special Education from that time until June 30th, 2014. She also, so in addition to her 18-plus years as Director of Special Education, she's been a teacher at Shawsville Middle School, High School. She's been a teacher at CPS at Bellevue, a Special Education Coordinator, a Supervisor of Special Education, and a lead consulting teacher. Her dedication and passion for the students who have passed her way, and there are thousands of them, and I watched her this morning in the parking lot with a child who was having a real challenge with getting to school this morning. So we will be losing a passionate and talented educator, and I know that she will stay close to us even as she moves into retirement. Thank you for your service, Christina.
That concludes our honors and recognitions for the night. We will take a 5-minute break to give time for everyone to congratulate those that were honored tonight.
For citizens to address the board about issues pertaining to public education in Montgomery County. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to speak. The screens throughout the room and the laptop will indicate that the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when the 3 minutes have passed. Since no one has signed up to speak, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak? Seeing no one, public address is closed. Our next item is consent items. Is there nothing to be pulled from consent agenda? Then we will consider the consent items approved. Is there any discussion regarding consent items? Consent items approved. Personnel report. Do I have a motion to adopt the personnel report?
Second.
Any discussion about the personnel report? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Personnel report is passed. Pay the bills. Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion regarding the bills? All those in favor of paying the bills, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Bills are paid. Superintendent's reports and recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Ivers. The first item this evening are your legislative policy considerations. They're presented this evening for your information. You have the bill summaries and the policy implications for legislative changes that impact Montgomery County Public Schools board policies. Mr. King and Sands Anderson brings these to the board about this time each year. Mr. King is here this evening. He's at the podium should you have questions and should he choose to offer some comments about some of the policies. Most of these policies also have an MCPS staff person assigned as a point person. I would draw your attention to policy 7-4.1 and the note that I provided at the top of the page that this policy is optional and may require some expenditure of district funds to implement and publicize. I felt it was important for you to know that. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. King.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Any questions?
Yes,
Any questions?
yes.
Okay, fire away.
The bill on the smoking issue,
The vapor cigarettes,
yes,
it's,
that's not covered in the regular situation, that there's no smoking at all. We have to do something.
I think that, I don't know what you all do as a practical matter, and I would defer to the administration. The General Assembly saw a need to go a step further, and so as you see in the General Assembly update document that we provided to you, the Department of Education will be drafting a new provision to its model student code of conduct. This is not implemented for another year, so it needs to be effective July 15. So we bring it to you for information this year, and next year we'll bring back specific language that will likely be required for you to include. So whether or not your principals enforce something like that right now, I'm not sure.
I'm assuming that we are enforcing that, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. I was a little hasty. I do want to point out two things for you, if I may, very quickly. If you would look, please, at your policy 1-4.1, which is the School Board Members Conflict of Interest Act.
Yes.
And if you would flip to our numbered page 7, please, of the draft bill, to the draft policy changes, down on the very bottom. Do you have the?
Wait a minute,
No,
we
we're
don't,
on-
we don't have it. in
Okay,
that.
I'm sorry.
We're on iPads.
Gotcha.
But
I
I-
apologize.
Yeah.
There is a new disclosure requirement for you all. So in your leisure, if you would just take a look at that, and if you have any questions, let me know. Just has to do with when you have to report whether or not you have received certain benefits or gifts from other people. And there are prohibitions about what you can and cannot receive that already existed. This is just a new reporting requirement.
New reporting of it?
Reporting requirement. Every year, now twice a year, you're required to file a conflict of interest report, and it just reveals what you have or have not received. And if after reading that you have any questions, let me know. I'll be glad to answer. And then there is a proposed revision to your policy 1-6.1 that deals with your board meetings. And there's a provision that allows electronic participation, but only when an individual member has an emergency and is not able to attend for certain reasons that are listed in the statute. Right now, the policy says the school board has to approve the members' participation by electronic means by a majority vote. The law was changed this year that just simply says the board has to approve it by a mechanism that it believes is appropriate. So you could just keep the policy the way you have it and require a majority vote. You could also move to another mechanism if you want to, but you don't have to. So those are two things that in the next 2 weeks you might want to think about before we come back and decide if you would like some different language.
So you're saying board members can participate if it's an emergency situation in a board meeting? Somehow or another, in an emergency situation, you don't know if they'd want to attend a board meeting.
I'm sorry, Ms. Franklin, I didn't hear you.
Just thinking an emergency situation, board meeting might not be the priority. I don't know.
Well, for example, if someone is out of town for personal reasons, maybe there's been a death in the family or something like that, but they're available to participate on an evening, they could call in, but they have to let this board know ahead of time and seek permission of the board. And your policy already says that. And the approval mechanism that's in your policy says it must be by majority vote. And you could change to a simple acquiescence if you wanted to. But you may leave it exactly as it is. Other than that, there really are not a large number of proposed changes this year. Everything that's included in the revised language comes right from the statutes that have been approved by the General Assembly.
So with the ability to participate in those meetings, does that mean that person, if there were something to be voted on, could vote via electronically as well?
If you look at
I'm trying to pull it up right now. Okay.
the entire mechanism, there's a whole subcategory of that policy called electronic participation, and it spells it out pretty clearly.
Okay. I'm seeing it now finally.
I think what your practice has been before, when someone could not be here, a member could not be here, but did not meet this standard, and you might even remember when Dr. Hopkins was on the board, and Dr. Hopkins was on the Freedom of Information Act Council. So I was even more confident in my legal opinion that he sat on the council and this is what they opined was permissible. He would listen in or allow you all to listen in, but not comment and not vote. This is a mechanism by which one can quote unquote participate, and I would believe that in the common sense meaning of that word, participate means discuss, act on, vote, etc. But as you see, it requires a declaration in the minutes that the person's participating remotely and some other documentation requirements.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that's all I have unless there are other questions.
I have one more. School board policy, employee lactation support. My question is this. If we have a student or a teacher who has had a child which is under a year old, and they're here in this building, I'm trying to figure out the dynamics of this. Is the child brought into the school? I mean, it says that this person is allowed to have a room of privacy where they can nurse the child, and I'm trying to figure out.
No, I don't believe this addresses nursing the child. I believe this is...
Well, my question is, well, it's privacy is what the
Correct.
issue is. But the question is, do we have these situations where kids come in, babies come into the buildings?
Again, I believe, and I would defer to the ladies in the room.
Yeah.
But I believe this is when women are expressing milk for future use by their babies. It's not actually nursing the child.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
You're correct,
Yeah.
yes.
So they're given a private location to do that, and yes, we have very frequent requests by young mothers, and especially in teaching ranks, as you might imagine, we have a large number of young mothers.
I'm sorry, I really was at a loss as to how this transpired, and I guess the child is...
To tell you the truth, I believe that it's a hole in the federal law, because believe it or not, there is a provision, it's either in the FLSA or the ADA, and I apologize that I don't have it in front of me right now, that says that professional women are not required under federal law to be given this opportunity. And so I believe they've gone to the General Assembly to get that hole in the federal law filled by a state mandate. And as you notice, there is a provision both for teachers and for students.
Thank you.
It is a provision for the teachers and students, because the one I'm reading right now only says employee.
Yeah, there's another
further
exact,
at the bottom.
identical one that applies to
Did I not
students
see
in
it?
the student section.
Okay.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
there is. It's-
Policy
it's a-
7-5.8.
I think
Mr.
it's the
Lyons.
same policy.
Sorry. I didn't scroll down far enough.
It's the same policy for both students
Just applies
and,
to-
yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr.
Okay.
King.
Thanks.
Next item is the Virginia Retirement System Non-Certified Employee Alternate Rate Resolution. You will recall that this option was discussed with the board during budget discussions, and the cost savings from the use of the alternative rate of 8.78% instead of 10.79% are incorporated in your adopted budget. Tonight, I'm requesting that the board approve the required resolution adopting the alternate rate. You may choose to move this item to action if you wish, since it has been previously discussed by the board and it is already incorporated in your budget decision.
I move that we vote on it tonight.
Second.
Any discussion? I do have one comment. I don't know if there's something that needs to be done immediately on this, but I would like to wait to see if Mr. Jones has any comments on this and wait for his vote. That's my personal feeling on it.
We have to have the resolution by July 1. Is that correct, Joe? Yes. So you could leave it as an information item.
Isn't it an information item now?
Yes, but
Yeah.
Ms. Woolsey,
Okay.
I won't be here for the 17th meeting.
okay.
So it's a wash. Okay. Well, matter of fact, neither will, Mr. Jones may be late for that meeting
That's
also.
correct.
Right.
Well, we better get it done.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? Okay, could you repeat the motions?
I was under the impression that the motion was to move this to action. A vote had not taken place yet on whether or not the board was going to move it to
Thank you.
action.
So it is now an action item.
Well, we have to
Any
vote
further-
for it
any
to be
further-
an action item.
We haven't voted.
We have to vote for it to be an action item.
You're correct. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Do I hear any more motions?
I make a motion that we accept the employer contribution rates as presented.
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye. You know, I believe, again, what's going on with our Virginia employment rates and how it's being passed on to our employees has been a shell game, and now it's dumped in our laps. So I'm not voting in favor of this.
Motion passed.
The next item is one that I added late this afternoon. I apologize for that, but it is a matter of timeliness that led me to do that. You may recall the discussion during last year's legislative session to potentially allow school systems to participate in the state employees' health plan. The hope was that doing so may generate some cost savings for school divisions. The information provided this evening was only received in my office on Friday, May the 30th. At the moment, staff and I are trying to get more details, but it is difficult to do so considering that no one is even sure that the legislature will include language to implement this opportunity. Regardless, the Virginia Department of Education passed on to us the memo from the Commonwealth's Department of Human Resource Management, which advises that participation intent must be declared by board resolution no later than July 1, 2014. I'm presenting just what we know now and will provide the board with additional information as soon as it becomes available from the state. It appears now that the resolution of intent to participate is not binding, but that has not been confirmed yet by the state. It is, however, definite that should participation become a reality, the commitment is for a minimum of 3 consecutive years. I have no real information yet about the rates or the plan details, which is why clarification from the state that intent is non-binding will be critical to any recommendation that I make to you regarding a decision to consider this opportunity. Tonight, this is just for your information. As I said, I only received it Friday. We spoke with Mr. King's office today. Mr. McAlandro has attempted to get some clarification from Department of Education, VSBA, VAS, and others, and I think everybody's kind of scrambling right this minute to figure it out. So it's on the table as information. Your next board update should include every detail that we can possibly get, and then we will talk about it at June 17th meeting.
Any questions?
Okay, so it says here, the school division shall not be allowed to offer any health benefit plan to any other office or by the state employees, other than those state employees? I'm not understanding that, so.
What that means is that if you choose to participate, you can't operate a dual system. In other words, every employee that's insured by Montgomery County Public Schools would have to be in the state plan. You couldn't run a parallel plan of some other option for employees.
Like we're doing now.
Like right now, we do offer our employees a choice. They can choose HMO or they can choose the Key Care plan. But in this instance, we could not offer Anthem, we could not offer our own self-insured plan. We would have to take the state 100% for 3 consecutive years as our sole provider for health insurance benefits. That's the way the language is written at this time. Or we don't really know what the language is going to say. There's nothing in the House doesn't even include this language in it. The Senate does include this language in it, but at this point, there's no agreement on anything, so. But we have a timeline of July 1, so we need to get it out here, even though we don't have the details.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess the two things that I want to know, numbers and two, the non-binding part of it. I mean, that's, you know, if we can vote on it and then get out of it, then, yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Then we get to compare numbers whenever we get them, but yeah, the non-binding part, and obviously there's no indication when that's going to be, so I don't even know that we could really vote for it in 2 weeks.
I'm hoping that we'll have some details because every school system and county government potentially in the state is going to be in the same position.
Any other comments or questions? Moving on.
They slide it in like this, doesn't sound good, that's all I can say.
Your next item is the approval for our title plans for 2014-15. The plans for federal title money are approved yearly. These 3 title funds account for just over $2 million for use in our schools and with our staff members. All 3 are expected to be level funded. However, the numbers are estimates at this time, and final dollar amounts will not be determined until late summer. I greatly appreciate the work of Rhonda Baker, Judy Borelski, and Lois Graham on these plans and on the implementation of expenditure plans for these funds throughout the school year. They're presented this evening for your information.
Okay, so we need to ask questions now. Let me get back to the right one. Get the right plan here, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry, next item.
Okay, the gift plan is next. Okay, and any questions about the title plans?
When do we have to approve those by?
They'll come back to us on the 17th.
Okay.
And you never know what your exact allocation is when you approve them.
When we approve it. Okay.
The next item is the Montgomery County Public Schools Gifted Plan for 2013 through 2018. And the documents provided represent our gifted plan for the period 2013 through 2018. It is presented for information this evening. I'm greatly appreciative of the work of Diane Naff and the Advisory Council for their work on the plans. I don't see Diane. Is she? Yeah, there she is. You're behind the monitor for me, but we're happy to answer any questions that you may have as well.
Okay. My questions are in all the different areas here. I'll just put it this way. My questions are around the identification of students and how that is working, especially since we did away with some funding with that second grade several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
How our educators are being getting professional development around identifying children, especially with our growing population changes, demographics, and what we're doing to make sure we're including everyone in that.
Right. And there's a couple of things. I brought the plan to you last year, members of the board, Mrs. Blackburn. The plan is similar, but because we're getting ready to go through a technical review, that's one of those things that we looked at to make sure that we had a streamlined process in the county for that screening and identification for students. So minor changes, but that is one that we've spent some time looking at. On page 34 in your document, where it talks about cluster grouping.
Right.
I realize it's a large document. I apologize, and I do have paper, or I can provide paper documents for you tomorrow if that's what you'd like. But on 34, where there's a section that talks about classroom teachers and cluster grouping, I did add a section in there about how we can support our classroom teachers, and we have outlined some of the professional development that we're doing with rigor and engagement, and then going back to the goal section where we're looking at making sure that we're looking at all populations of students. I've listed the text that we're using for that, and then I've also listed the screening part where we're not just testing the students, but we're also looking at some other data that's in the division. So instead of just going in with our second grade, we've looked at some other things that we're doing in language arts with reading levels. We're looking at some math assessments that we're doing, kindergarten and first grade, and that way we're trying to find those students as well. So we've put things in place to try to help support us with that screening.
Okay. So
If you look at our goals, one more thing, go back to our goals section. I think it's on page 7 of the plan.
the way ours is,
I
it's not,
apologize.
at least I can't follow it that way. It's in different categories.
Mhm. In the plan, all of the goals are listed,
Okay.
and there's a section that the state had us add last year. That's the equitable representation of students.
Right.
And so we have a whole new section in there, and we're looking at our, the way we're screening our students and making sure that we're finding those students from all those populations that we're addressing in that section.
Okay. So with the text, the material that folks are using, how do we know that they're using it?
Well, each one of the resource teachers is responsible for teachers and faculties in either 2 or 3 buildings. We're doing the professional development ourselves, and then we're going in and we're looking for those students. In addition, as part of my position, for instance, at Christiansburg Primary, when I go in there and do those lessons, and then I go up to the teachers, and then we're actually looking for those students. We're inviting students to be part of enrichment groups so that we don't miss anyone. I think we've really tried to make a concerted effort to make sure that all of the students in Montgomery County have this opportunity to be screened.
Okay. Thank you.
But as we heard you say, there's a gifted teacher for possibly 3 schools. And I think we all know that could always use some more funding pushed to this area.
Right. when you look at the plan, it's a coordinated effort between the classroom teachers and the gifted resource teacher. So within the plan, you'll see responsibilities of the resource teacher and then also responsibilities of the classroom teacher that serves those students as well. So it's a collaboration model.
I've been curious about this from, many years ago. Is that a common standard just to identify English and mathematics? You don't check the kids gifted for art or music or history or science. I mean, I'm just making it up. Is it, how it is through?
That's been something that we can choose as a county to do. We
Okay.
can do
I was
an overall
curious
gifted
all over,
label.
yeah.
If we did that, we'd probably have 4,000 identified gifted
Yeah,
students in Montgomery County right now.
Yeah.
So at the time, we chose to go with a specific academic.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we
That's curious
chose math and language arts because we have the means and the pre-testing and the teachers to be able to support students in those two areas. But if you look at the goals, I left it in there because really that is our goal within 5 years, that we would broaden our identification process. We've done a lot of that work already. We're ready to go, so we have screening ready. But it just means as soon as you screen those students, then we're
You need
looking
to
for
have
how we're going to
resources,
serve them.
yeah.
And so again, that's another piece that would be added on to classroom teachers' responsibilities
Yeah.
as well as resource
Yeah,
teachers.
Resources.
But our classroom teachers in those areas of science and social studies, we're immersing all kinds of projects into them, so I think we're still serving the students, but the high academic, all students in Montgomery County, but it's not listed in the plan.
Do we have another local school system that does implement a broader range, not just including the math and English, but does include science, social studies, art? Is there one that we could glean any information from?
Yes, I mean, there are multiple models around the state as well as within our region.
Okay.
And one that we have looked at as well is art. And so because we haven't been able to move in that area yet, we're looking at what types of strategies can we do to support those students and support the art teachers, even though, again, there's not a program. We're supporting those students with the Summer Governor School, and we're also supporting the students through the STEM camp and the summer camps that we have planned for the summertime.
But these are strictly gifted students, academically gifted students, and I think what Mr. Lyons is asking, and the answer is that we don't have it. The talents, it was what we're looking for, the arts,
Correct.
the different areas like that.
Mhm.
And yes, there are schools throughout the county that have both gifted
Correct.
and gifted and talented groups. And it's unfortunate that we don't have that, and we should. Any other questions or
Thank you.
comments? Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Nice job. Get my agenda moved here. Okay, our next item is a presentation. And Sharon Zuckerwar will share with the board and our public some information regarding activities related to Brown versus Board of Education. She will also share a specific project that is related to this discussion, which will involve our fifth graders. Sharon, thank you very much. Glad to have you tonight.
Good evening. Thank you all for this opportunity. A few weeks ago, members of this board asked this question. Above and beyond the resolution marking the events of Brown v. Board, what are we doing in our schools to help our students really understand the long-lasting significance of this historic decision? The short answer is this: we teach about it. It's reflected in our history and social studies standards of learning. Students read and write about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Jackie Robinson, Rosa Parks. Students sequence the events leading up to the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and identify the significance of political protest. They analyze documents, photographs, videos, and connect and contextualize the actions of many involved in the civil rights movement. I personally stood in front of my fourth and fifth grade classes for years, and I taught the vocabulary words of segregation and integration and civil rights. We watched Ruby Bridges, and we read The Watsons Go to Birmingham. And when they had a sit-in in the cafeteria demanding that they got more fifth grade freedoms, I didn't get in their way. And when they made signs and they marched on the playground for the right to play kickball again, I supported their peaceful protest. But here's the long answer. I always knew that these were very foreign concepts for these students. Segregation and separate schools and water fountains and opportunities were not things that they easily related to. Even when we told Virginia's story of massive resistance and the closure of Prince William schools, it was still for them a very much a story of long ago and far away. So our students need to understand prejudice and stereotypes and diversity and acceptance, because this didn't go away with Brown v. Board. In fact, our efforts of social justice and diversity are even more important today. And in the words of the recently lost Dr. Maya Angelou, history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. So tonight I'm excited to share with you a project that's in the works that will help our students have a front row view of what life was like in a very broad sense right here in our own backyard. As you know, 2 years ago, we transitioned Virginia Studies from a 2-year course to 4th grade, and through a grant from the Library of Congress, we developed a 5th grade local elective that was written by our teachers that's called My Place in Time and Space. This course is focused on student engagement and demonstration of higher order thinking skills through historical and geographical analysis. This includes the opportunity to appreciate and understand the local history of Montgomery County from multiple perspectives across themes of change, culture, individuals, groups, environment, and progress. So through another grant, we have the opportunity to work with several folks at Virginia Tech, as well as the Christiansburg Alumni Association and Christiansburg Institute Incorporation, to bring our rich local history to life and make sure it's safe in the hands of our students. Because many don't know. Many don't know about Christiansburg Institute. They don't know that Booker T. Washington stood on those steps. They don't know that African American students traveled from near and far to attend. And they should. They should know what segregation looked like and the impact of Brown versus Board had here in Montgomery County. They should know about Christiansburg Institute, and they should walk those grounds and grapple with the concepts of segregation. They should be able to see the buildings that are no longer there and look inside the windows and truly explore history, which is what this curriculum and this project will allow our 5th grade students to do. Through funding from the National Science Foundation, the Cyber Learning Transforming Education Grant strives to integrate new technologies into learning environments, increasing access to more personalized learning experiences. The project explores how augmented and virtual reality can scaffold authentic teacher and student learning about the history of Christiansburg Institute. The project has the potential to create learning environments that bring important elements of our local and national history alive for our students as they examine issues of race and segregation and massive resistance in the 19th and 20th centuries. A series of workshops and field trips will be available for teachers and 5th grade students, where they will use handheld devices to interact with the augmented and virtual reality activities being developed. Montgomery County Public Schools recognizes the value of enhancing students' understanding of the world around them as it is now and as it was many years ago. Developing an understanding of the past and the changes that have occurred over many years is an essential concept for students who are engaged in the doing of history. These opportunities are available for both MCPS teachers and students to authentically investigate changes over time in our own community. So we greatly appreciate the efforts of the School of Education, the Departments of History and Computer Science at Virginia Tech, as well as working alongside folks at the Christiansburg Institute Incorporation and Christiansburg Institute Alumni Association, as we continue to focus on research and look forward to continued partnerships through this project. So tonight I'd like to thank those of our partners here who are going to present more about the project. David Hicks, Todd Ogle, Gurjot Singh, Aaron Johnson, as well as members of the Christiansburg Alumni Association Board, Ms. Gladys Sokolow, Ms. Jackie Eves, and Ms. Marcy Schnitzer. So at this time I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Hicks and Dr. Ogle, and they will begin to show you more about what this project will be and what our students will be able to do.
Good evening.
So this project has, Sharon's basically covered everything. It's about the Christiansburg Institute. We're looking at using digital technologies. One of the key parts... Okay. One of the key parts of this is that it's about the importance of... let me just hit this, pause this, sorry. One of the key parts is it really is about the importance of local history as a portal into... hey, can you hit this, Todd? It's flying for me. He's my technology guy. I was thrown off. I was all in the mood.
He's the teacher. Let's just back this up a
Just
little
back
bit.
it up a second. And then we'll go really, really fast. So one of the motivations really is to teach young children about the idea of engaging in the doing of history. Working with primary sources, working with secondary sources, working with graphs, and the idea of place-based education becomes very important. Our motivation is, again, as we said, inquiry-based skills, learning to work with evidence, conceptualizing the past and understanding time, continuity and change, and actually engaging in the doing of history, which is exactly what Sharon said. One of the other key parts of it is our objectives are to work and understand how augmented reality can actually support a feeling of going back in time. We can never go back in time ourselves, but we can get a sense of what it was like in the past. And in order to understand what life was like for children during Jim Crow. We also want to provide them with scaffolds as a way for them to access and work with historical sources. As opposed to saying, analyze this, we've developed some scaffolds that create steps into working with the historical sources, and then give the children a chance to investigate what life was like at Christiansburg Institute as a portal into understanding the national issues and history of this time. Do you see that? I did all right there.
Yeah.
I'll keep moving a minute once that moved. So we chose Christiansburg Institute because it really is part of national history. And there are primary sources and historical sources that are available that are visuals. We also have text-based. We also have maps. And so what we have there is a rich amount of materials that we can work with. And many of them will be photographs, but we will be using also text and maps as we go. The key thing for you to see today, though, is what the heck we're talking about when we're talking about augmented reality. And so the next thing that we'll be moving into is giving you some models of what we try to do, which is site-based, but also classroom-based work that actually tries to bring the past to students and them to the past.
This is Dr. Singh.
Thanks. So we are providing students about 2 ways to look inside buildings, like historical context. So here I'm in front of Edgar A. Long building on Christiansburg Institute, and it looks funny that I'm looking at a building from outside, but I'm looking through an iPad which kind of overlays what it used to look like in like about 100 years ago. And so, pardon me? Oh, okay. All right. So I'm just going closer, and so this iPad, what it does is gets this information from outside the building, and it captures that scene, and then we can overlay computer graphics on top of the real building. So like over here, so this is a real building, but everything we are looking inside the building is artificial or computer generated. So we tap on a piece of evidence or a picture, and then we can analyze it in place. We enter, okay, what this picture is about, and the basic idea is to provide kids a context, like in place when they are at that place and looking at the real building, to make them think what these pieces of evidence they signify. And for like this book, they used to teach us about 100 years ago, but to provide kids context, so this piece of evidence, it comes out and they analyze in place. And then so this was one part of experiment where they are looking inside the real building. So what about the buildings that are not longer any there? They are not there any longer. So this we provide them with virtual buildings. This is a computer generated building, and it's in place where it used to be, and they tap on the building and they go inside. So they're kind of transported inside the building, so they get a view of inside the building, and they look all the pictures scattered around, and they can analyze those pictures by tapping on it. And so that's the whole idea of the providing kids a context or historical context and bring them back into history about whatever time period was that, so they can think in those terms and they can feel how it used to be at that time. That's pretty much it. Thanks.
So again, augmented reality is using an iPad or an iPhone either on the site itself or back in the classroom. What Dr. Singh has shown you is working on the site itself. And we are not allowed to access the building of the Ed Gray Long building. It's closed up. But using these tools, we can take the students inside. And then, as any of you who've driven past the daycare know, there's nothing else left on the site. It's just a field. Everything else has been torn down. And so you can explore those buildings virtually with recreations we'll have created. Another way this can be used is in the classroom with a little pre-work on a map. So we'll have a paper map of the site, and we can place models of the buildings that existed on the site on that paper map, and also let the students watch a short video that introduces them to the history of the site, what was there at different time periods, and then sets them off on a little practice assignment to get used to using the technology and interrogating the evidence itself. So those same buildings that were on the site of the Christiansburg Institute can be presented on this map. The video includes a flyover that shows a map of what the site used to look like. This specific example is of the Newtown area in Oddfellows Hall in Blacksburg, where, much like the site of the Christiansburg Institute, only one structure still remains. But we can show folks what was there and the extent to what the site used to look like at different periods of time. So after the kids have had a chance to look at this video, they'll be able to look around the map itself. And on the map, they'll see these models that look sort of like Monopoly buildings. These are the neighborhood buildings that existed in Newtown, right across the lane from Oddfellows Hall. And we'll be doing the same sort of thing for the Christiansburg Institute site. We have a faculty member and students in the School of Visual Arts that will be building on the computer models of what different buildings on the campus looked like at that time. And David, is this Aaron? I'll keep DJing.
Oh, please, if you don't mind.
I'm the technology guy.
Okay, so in terms of what it looks like in the classroom, we've kind of, Dr. Hicks has designed a scaffold to support students in their inquiry, and it's essentially a series of steps that are embedded with questions to guide students as they analyze sources. So it's not just analyze this piece of evidence, it's sort of giving students a series of questions to answer when they're summarizing an artifact or contextualizing it or inferring or monitoring their thinking, and they start to piece these pieces of evidence together and start corroborating them together and creating a narrative, essentially. So this scaffold is going to support their thinking throughout the process. And what you see here are essentially kind of what the students will be seeing, the evidence analysis. You see the piece of evidence there, and then there's room there for students to respond to the scaffolding questions. And kind of what this looks like in the classroom, we've designed a series of instructional activities for teachers, and we have plans to meet with teachers in Montgomery County teachers in August, but we've created a series of activities over the course of 5 days for teachers to support this AR experience. But as I said, we'll be meeting with these teachers in August, and we aim to sort of get their buy-in and their input, and it's designed in a way that could extend past 5 days, kind of left open to the teacher. But essentially what you're seeing here is a cadence of instruction, sort of the 5 days. And we really see this as sort of a portal into the past, both at the local and national levels, with day 1, teachers being, or with day 3, they're out in the field collecting pieces of evidence to analyze. The previous 2 days, they've sort of become familiar with the scaffold. They've been introduced to a Rosa Parks activity where they analyze source documents. And then they become more familiar with the AR map, as Todd mentioned. And then they, on day 3, like I said, they are brought out to the field and they become more familiar with the AR app, and they start, they visit 4 buildings that are on the CI site, including the barn, the dormitory, the hospital, and the classroom. And then once they get back to the classroom, days 4 and 5, they take those pieces of evidence for further analysis, and they start to piece together these pieces of evidence and start to create a narrative that sort of gets into the lives of gets into the narrative of what life was like for students in the 1950s and 60s at Christiansburg Institute.
So to wrap up, I just wanted to let you know some of the other folks that are on the team who couldn't be here tonight. Doug Bowman in computer science, he's our fearless leader, and David Klein is our historian from the Department of History at Virginia Tech. And our partners who are here tonight, Sharon, Gladys, Jackie, and Marcy, and Bob Leonard, who could not be here. So, thank you.
That's fascinating.
Any questions or comments?
Looked really exciting. I think fifth graders will like a new word for AR. I don't know if you all know the other AR they know about.
And it's about time. You know, the Christiansburg Institute had a 100-year history here, and when the schools integrated, that campus was just demolished. You know, buildings were literally taken apart, torn down, and artifacts lost. You know, what it did to the African American community as far as, you know, separating, because when you had children who were brought in from Pulaski, Giles, you know, all other counties, and then everybody was separated, and that was the only place that you could go, and for years you got there the best way you could. You know, I went my first 2 years in segregated schools at Friends Elementary, which is our technology building now. And every time I go past that building, I'm like, you know, there was a playground there, you know, it was a building that was alive, and now it's, you know, looks like one of our kind of leftover buildings, and it's very discouraging to me when I see that. But then I drive down the road a little further and I realize there's really no building left that functions on that CI campus. And folks know nothing about it. Folks in this county, many of them don't even know it existed. My grandparents, well, my grandmother and her brothers and sisters came from Covington and boarded there. You know, my father went there. You know, it's just the skills and things that folks learned coming out of there. It had a full vocational, I guess, at that point, where you came out of there, either you were prepared for college, when you could find a college you could go to and afford to, or you had a trade. You were ready to hit the street and find a job if you could find one here. Or like, that's how my mother ended up from Ohio and Virginia, because my father couldn't find work here. I had to go to Ohio to find work, and then decided he didn't like the city life, came back to the country. I'm so glad they did. But I just can't wait for our children to be enriched with our history here and to be able to physically see and experience what my people went through on that campus. I wish I could spend the 5 days in the classroom somewhere. It's going to be great. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you all joining us this evening, and Sharon, as always, appreciate your leadership in bringing us the program.
One more thing. Is it possible afterwards that we could maybe hear from some of the students what they learned, what the take back was from this?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Don't see any reason that we can't. Sharon, let's keep that on our radar, okay? We want to, after we implement the pilot in the fall, have some of the students who participated, perhaps, and their teacher come back and share with us a little bit about their experience.
Absolutely. We'll keep you in the loop on that.
Thank you.
This evening, I'm recommending that the board approve a request to the Board of Supervisors in the amount of $159,564 for the demolition of the old Shawsville Annex. The project as planned and bid does not have any impact on the adjacent athletic fields, stadium, or track area. It simply removes and levels the building that's directly across the street from the current Shawsville Middle School. We have talked about this before. It's been in Mr. Baronato's capital updates and facilities updates, and so I'm presenting it this evening for your action.
Motion to approve.
Any comments or questions? Isn't that the building that used to be the food?
Yes, it is.
storage? Yeah. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Can I ask a question about how much money we have remaining out in this Price's Fort project? Do we know?
Katie, do you have the total?
I don't know. We haven't reconciled it, but it's around, before this comes out, it's around $400,000.
And do we have to use that money for facilities kind of things, or what's the?
Yes, it's bond money, capital bond money.
Capital, okay.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, our next item is a CHS drainage easement. The owners of the property to the south of Christiansburg High School are developing their property and have requested the school board's cooperation in relocating a 15 feet wide drainage easement, which the school board has had on their property since 1972. Graceway Ministries plans to build a building in a location on their property that currently is encumbered by the existing private drainage easement. Graceway has proposed to relocate the easement around the proposed building site, install a new stormwater facility at their cost, and dedicate a public storm drainage easement to the town of Christiansburg. The proposed project has been approved by the town and reviewed on behalf of Montgomery County Public Schools by Mr. Baronato and Sands Anderson. The project has no negative impact on the school or surrounding property. I recommend that the board adopt the resolution prepared by legal to vacate the current easement and revise to accept the new easement.
Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Okay, so it said none of the surrounding properties because there are private home, a private home and a business.
That is correct. There has no impact on any surrounding property. It's the primarily vacant land other than what the Graceway is going to build, if I'm not mistaken. Come to the microphone, please, Dan. I can't hear you.
This is the property that Graceway owns, and I don't believe there are any houses on that property owned by anybody else. And we have a current private drainage easement through the property, and goes right through where they want to build a child care center. And this just takes, the school board would vacate that, and because now there's a road there, Independence Boulevard, which also drains through there. The town, the Graceway is going to build a new drainage system at the edge of their property and put in new pipes and new collection system. and then turn that over to the town to operate as a public easement.
So in effect, it provides enhanced service
Yes.
for others besides even the Graceway building.
Right. Actually, it's the road, the Independence Boulevard, as well as one of the buildings to the west of the Graceway property.
Thank you, Dan.
Any other comments or questions? We have a motion and a second. Any more comments? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Next item is discussion of July meeting dates. Currently, meeting dates in July are scheduled for July 1 and July 15. In some years, the board has canceled regularly scheduled meetings in July. Should there be urgent business requiring the board to meet, a special meeting may be called. The item is presented tonight for your information, discussion, and possible action this evening.
I move that we cancel the meeting on July 1st and July 15th.
I second.
Any questions or any comments?
I do, just because we're presented with something tonight that we have to decide by July 1st, and there's potential that there's going to be issues with that. I just want to make sure, obviously you've said we can do an emergency meeting. Will we just go back to one of those dates, more than likely?
We would go to a date that I could get consensus from a majority of the board to participate. We have occasionally even met at the noon hour for a single issue.
Okay. My concern is obviously those things. We really don't have a budget yet from the state, if we don't have one by the end of June, we potentially are going to have issues on our hands that we're going to have to work through in July. So, just to make everyone aware that we may be meeting in July. This is not a free pass.
Well, I'm not sure that's
But
true.
you haven't been here long enough to understand how July works.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare anymore that we get a July off.
Yeah.
So.
I'm not sure what you're saying is true, because it seems to me what Ms. Black said is the drop dead date on that is July 1st. So if we don't get it done by July 1st, it's not another meeting.
Well, when I'm talking about the budget itself, no state budget has been approved yet, and we're walking into uncharted territory if it's not approved by June 30th. That's my concern. Not a concern, just an observation.
I have a question. You did a doodle on the superintendent's evaluation. Was anything that came up in July that?
We all haven't done it yet.
Pardon me?
We haven't gotten responses from all board members to come up with.
Okay, but that's a different issue, so we'll,
Right.
as long as we have that on the radar. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? July is free.
Maybe.
Yes, exactly.
Ish.
And the final item this evening is your calendar of activities, and it's attached for your information. We have, worked with you regarding your attendance at graduations, and I look forward to seeing many of you at one or more of those activities. That's it for me, Mr.
Thank you.
Stivers.
Any unfinished business? Any new business? Announcements, information.
I hope some of you can go to the 50th birthday party at GLE, or Gilbert Linkus.
Right.
It's going to be big.
That's the 6th at 4:30?
Starts at 5:30.
5:30, okay, thank you.
This Friday, correct?
Yep.
Just want to make sure.
I have a few things that I want to announce. The Auburn softball team is still in the running for this regional and possible state championships. Blacksburg track, boys and girls, Christiansburg boys are still vying for championship events. Girls soccer won their first regional game last night, and the boys soccer won theirs. A little side note on that. Chairman Ivers' granddaughter scored a goal in the game against Tunstall. And I think that's all the teams that are still in the running for championship games. Any other announcements or information? Coming up board meetings. And you see June 17th is going to be a big one. And beyond that, we're still waiting for the doodle to be completed so we can work with the superintendent on her evaluation. An adjournment? Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.